Hey everyone, today we are going to be talking about the new Helloween album, Helloween. It is going to be released on Nuclear Blast Records on the 18th of June. You guys have already seen the first couple of singles that have come out, first being Skyfall and the second being Fear of the Fallen. Skyfall, we got the first 7 minutes and some odd seconds in video, which that was the most epic video I think I've seen in ages. I'm so glad somebody decided to put out a really kick-ass music video. Like, it really screams to the 80s for me for that kind of music to come back with that kind of a crazy video. So thank you guys for doing that, number one. But for those of you who didn't go further than the video, the single itself is 12 minutes and 35 seconds of nothing but metal glory. It is the infusement of everything that's been coming over the years from this band. You know, for those of you who are not really familiar with Helloween, they started out in the 80s. Their original lineup was, of course, Kiske, Weikath, Grosskopf, Hansen, and Schwichtenberg. And, over the years, the lineup changed somewhat. Early 90s, we saw the exit of Hansen and Kiske, which we saw the intro of the only long-standing was Darius from that move. Of course, we lost Ingo along the way, and what a tragic loss that was for everyone. So the guys have been making this music since the late 80s. It's 2021. They're putting out a new album. But a couple of years back, the guys decided to spring some shocking news on everyone and had Kiske and Hansen come back to the band for their Pumpkin United's tour, which they went worldwide with. And nobody was really sure if this was going to be the next album that was coming lineup or if it was just something to celebrate the music itself. So we're just getting that look now as to what the guys have decided to do, which is include 7 members on the album, which means you've got 3 guitar players, which is madly insane. And you're going to believe it to be that insane when you hear this album. For me, let me just dive back in. I first came into contact with the guys, I believe it was 87ish, 88. They came to Seattle. They played the Paramount Theater. I believe the band they were opening for, if I remember right, Megadeth. And I hadn't had a chance to see them. And, back in the day, it was either you find somebody on MTV or you find them in a magazine and you hunt down an important album. The guys really blew me away. I've been a fan since Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 1, and I've been a fan all the way through. I've got everything they've put out. Have I loved everything? I can't say that's definitively yes. And that's, a long-standing band. You're going to find things that just don't resonate with you along the way. And that is just how it is. But have I hated anything? I can't say that I've hated anything they've done, but for the most part, I love what they do. My first introduction to the style of metal was Helloween. My only other German metal experience really before that was Scorpions. So this was definitely a different flavor for me. Of course, both metal, but 2 totally different flavors where you've got Scorpions are super melodic and rocking out. And then you've got Helloween that, their power metal can be melodic, but it is straight up there, like crazy, insane, manic music. That being said, I've stayed with these guys for ages. I catch them whenever they're out on the road on tour, and I can get them. And thank God they come to Seattle when they come out on tour, even though a lot of people tend to skip us. And, the guys come here and they're so graceful and appreciative of the people that show up. We have a very fickle audience here, and sometimes they get a few hundred, sometimes they get, maybe 100 at a really tiny venue. And knowing the history of this band and knowing that I've seen them other places where they sell out massive arenas or they're playing on headlining stages at whether it's Wacken or they're headlining at Sweden Rock or any other number of festivals that are out there. It's always shocking to me that they want to come to Seattle and that they're willing to come here, knowing that they don't always pull the biggest crowd, but they're so appreciative and nice. And they come out and they talk to the fans, and just a really nice bunch of guys that make the experience of Helloween even more for people like me who are pumpkin heads that have followed the band for ages. It's endearing to the fans to know that they don't feel better than playing a small crowd, like that they're bigger than that event. They play like they're playing a massive venue, whether it's a small or a massive venue. And I appreciate that they do that. That being said, when they start touring on this album, I'm really hoping that they do include Seattle on that when they make their US leg, because I'm dying to see the guys again, and I'm dying to see them with the new music, not just the revisiting the past music that they did on the Pumpkins United tour. So let's get started talking about the album. So you guys already know, like, there's this 12-minute, 35-second long song. It's not the only song on the album that is long. You've got the opening track, which is Out for the Glory, which just kind of pulls you in, like it's like an opening track of like being something cinematic. It is a 7-minute and 32 long play. It just takes you through like all this fun styles that the guys do. I mean, I think this album is the most, I'm not going to say it's progressive metal, but I say for their style and evolvement, it's very progressive for them to really write it the way that they did, include the style that includes all of the writers into the mix. I think that it's very well done. It's the best of what they've done in their catalog. I mean, I saying that against, Keeper of the Seven Keys, people are probably like, oh, screw you, you're crazy, that's like the most iconic. I agree, it's very iconic, but when you're talking about putting these 7 guys together versus the different lineups, this is something totally different. But it's like the progression of everything that they've ever done has met up with this album to bring it to like this whole fit. And I really enjoyed what I heard. I mean, it's always the same with the albums, with as far as it is for bass from Markus. It's always him trying to top himself for how fast he can play and what he can do. And like he's, pulling these guys to play along. I mean, like, you have to keep up with Markus there, because he will go out of his way to lay down the fastest beats per minute that he could do. And you feel it in this album. And it is just that punch that you always can count on, that it's going to happen. And him and Danny are just pounding it out. Like there's some massive drum beats in here, and I'm loving the bass tracks. I absolutely, if you think about bass players out there in the world, I think Markus is one of my favorite bass players. His styling and how he plays, and just that his power and how fast he plays, is something that has never been lost on me. Whereas you get the guitar players, and again, you've got these wailing, blistering riffs that it's phenomenal. Like, how do they do that? Where do they come up with these ideas to do something that sounds so different from what they did before, but still carry this Helloween sound? And I think it's really cool, because this time around, you've got Kai back in the mix, and he wrote Skyfall, and there's all these intricate different plays in it, and it really folds out. Like I said, it's like an operatic kind of way it digests out. You've got starting out with one sound, progressing into something a little slower with different vocals, and to another. It's like this hypnotic but powerful play. And I say that you feel this in this whole album. It's very powerful, but you got a lot of really great melodies. You've got tons of really fun riffage, super fun chord progressions. Like, the guys really reached out to get that great sound in what they're doing, and to pull the fans along, to give them something a little different in each track. I mean, you've got these really super power tracks, and then you've got this song on here that I really like fell into, Mass Pollution, which is the 4th track. And it starts out with this chord that just sustains like an obscene long amount of time sustaining in it. And I was like, okay, what are they doing with this one? And then it just was like this fist pumping, pump, pump, pump. And in this track, like, there's this part where it hits, and it's like, go, 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 go. And you're like, yeah, I'm going to like pound my fists, and this is going to be the song that I'm waking up to in the pit. Like, I want to rock out to this. Like, it just like really fun. And it was almost like you were listening to power metal, but like a really intense hard rock at the same time. So it broke up the normal like shred fest that you'll get on a lot of albums from other bands that just always like wanted to be like, let's shred as much as we can. Where these guys, they break it to give you that melody, but to kind of switch you back into the style of what they can do. I really appreciated that they put the forethought in their writing to do stuff that's a little bit different. And I know that they probably had a ton of other songs that they wrote that just didn't fit the album. And I think every song on this album fits. They play through is really solid. It doesn't feel like anything that feels out of place. So when you get to that fourth track, Mass Pollution, you know, while I say it's more of like a hard rock feel, it still feels like it totally fits the album. And another thing that they do that's so well that I love is like their lyrics on all their albums are so, you know, about, sometimes they're about life, but sometimes it's just like about like how stupid we are on this planet. And like for like you stupid mankind kind of things, like their their writing is the same. Like you've got all these things going on, these intricate things that you've got to be listening to. So the lyrics have meaning that you need to be listening to as well as just the music. So you can't just totally get caught up in what's being played instrumentally. You got to be listening to what's going on in the lyrics as well, but not just the lyrics. You've got to be listening really careful on this album, because not only do you have, you know, you've got Darius, who's a phenomenal vocalist. You've got Kiske back in the mix, but then you've got, I would say, like a third vocalist, because you've got Kai Hansen singing as well. And it's like one minute you're like, okay, I think I'm going to expect to have this vocalist, and the next you get someone totally different. And like I'm listening, okay, I'm like, okay, here we go. We've got Kiss going. Okay, you're a little bit of Andy, and what was that, Kai? So it's really fun because it catches you off guard as to who's singing. They each have such distinct voices that you know who it is when you hear them. And I appreciate the fact that they didn't begrudgingly write this. They wrote it in a way that complements all of the vocalists. Each vocalist who's singing feels like they fit exactly where they need to fit on the songs. And that's a really hard thing to do when you've got three vocalists, and to find a way for everybody to shine. I mean, of course, Kai is not considered like the vocalist because he's more out there to shred and play, but he does sing along. I mean, that, of course, you know, Kai when did his Gamma Ray thing, and you know, I'm a follower of Gamma Ray as well. So you can't deny the vocals there. And I think it works really well. I mean, I'm like sweating listening as I'm listening to these melodies and the guitar tracks. And I'm like, okay, who's playing this one? Who's playing that one? Because there's so much going on. And I, I love what they did, because you've got these three like top-notch guitarists, and the way that they play together on this album is phenomenal. And I know, like I heard Sasha was saying on one of his live feeds that he didn't do some of the recording for like Skyfall, like that was Kai's son. Like there's so much going on behind the scenes on this album that I'm loving everything that they've done, and I can't wait till we get a chance to see this in person. And I'm hoping that when they're back out on the road, I mean, as much as I love my favorite tracks, I'm hoping they do a lot of the new album, because a lot of this new album songs really do need to be heard live. But do save some room there, guys, if you're watching this, because I do want to hear some of those favorite iconic tracks forever. Like, I mean, you can't go to a freaking Helloween show and not hear songs like I Want Out or Keeper of the Seven Keys or, you know, Dr. Stein. You've got some of these songs are just so iconically out there. So with that said, I think Helloween has done probably the best album they could possibly put out and include all the guys to where it's such an even keel feeling for them. You know, you're not listening to like tracks that are half written. You're not listening to things that haven't been thought out, or, you know, just using the least amount of chords as possible, or on the flip side, using as many chords as possible just to make it a shred fest. It is a very good album. I love everything they did with it. The recording of it came out fantastic. The writing, beautiful. And I think the mixing and mastering, the guys nailed it. And I think that if there was any album that I was really looking forward to this year, knowing that it was coming, is Helloween's album. I think that all of you guys out there are waiting for a new Helloween album are not going to be disappointed. If you're disappointed, why? Really, I'm like, that's my thought. Why? Because it is really phenomenal album. I mean, the seven guys together writing something and performing it in such a beautiful way that allows them all to shine is something that I absolutely appreciate. And having met most of the guys a few times and knowing that they are completely genuinely nice people, that this isn't just something that they do just to kind of blow out there. This is just makes it another level of why I support Helloween, and why I think people out there who love power metal or just love really great metal should be supporting bands like Helloween. They've been out there doing it for a long time. They've worked their asses off. They've paved the way for so many other bands out there, because I know there's so many bands that write music today because of people like Helloween, because of Michael Weikath, because of Kai Hansen, because of Sasha Gerstner, because of the way that Andy and Kiske write. You guys are not going to get a better album. You know, the bass players out there, you know, I know you guys, there are those people out there that give bass players so much shit. Stop it. Like I've got bass and guitar back there and I'm learning to play them because I love the stuff I'm hearing and I want to figure out how these guys are doing it because it's so cool to just like finger along on the frets to figure out what they're doing. Don't give the bass players any more shit because Markus is, like I said, one of the best bass players out there. When you look at it, you know, I'm of course I like there's other guys I dig out there too. I'm not, don't get me wrong, but seriously, give some love to the bass players and the drummer, of course, you know, Danny did a really good job with what he did on this album. I'm super thrilled, and I think you guys will be too. Nuclear Blast did a phenomenal job picking this one up to make sure that it's out there. Guys, get out and support this one. You're going to have some really fun power metal. And for those of you who really don't know Helloween that well, or have only come in on like the last few albums, go back to the very beginning, listen through everything. And because I think that if you haven't really listened to the entire discography of what the guys have done and the progression and of how they've evolved over the years, you're going to miss some of what they've done in this album, because I really do believe this album puts it all together. And you've got to go back and hear the history so that you guys know what they've done on this album to see what I'm talking about. And tasking you to go back and listen to all those albums is not a chore. It's going to be pure metal enjoyment for you. So guys, get out and support them. And if you're looking for the album, was fun for me as well. They're putting it out, of course, digitally. It's going to be on CD, and you can also pick it up on vinyl, which, yay, I love my vinyls. I've been a collector for a while, and this time I was surprised, and I think it was a limited edition. I think it was through HMV in the UK. I went out and rushed and just ordered it. They did a 2-picture disc LP. I got mine because I think that's super freaking cool. Like, I love that old throwback to the 80s because my heart still sticks with a lot of 80s metal and the bands that have tried and true. So if you're looking for something fun, they've got all kinds of options for you to get. They also have a new hoodie that they put out that is releasing this month that you can order. And so go get them, buy some merch, buy some albums, support the guys, get out there and do it. But definitely you want to listen to this, at least at the minimum. You want to definitely at least stream it when it comes out, because this album is going to show you what the tastemakers of power metal and creators of power metal can do. And Helloween, I don't know how you top yourselves every time that you put out a really solid release, but you do. And I want to say thank you. And from all the fans I know out there are going to say thank you. Thank you for continuing to keep your skin in the game and showing people that you can sustain, because you've had a phenomenal, great career, and you guys are nowhere near the end of it. So get out, you guys, and buy the new Helloween album, self-titled Helloween.